Hey y'all, I'm outside here at one of my garden slash compost areas, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about why you may want one of these too. So let me first talk about the compost pile. So did you know that Americans waste 40% of their food? 40% of the food, and where does that go? It goes to the landfill, and what happens when it's in the landfill? It creates methane. And with all of us, or most of us, concerned about global warming, this is something that you and your family can easily do. Reduce your waste. And so here is my plug for a compost pile. I've always had compost piles, and they've been kind of in a corner part of the yard, kind of hidden away. And when we moved, we had it in a more sunny spot, and all of a sudden we had all these volunteers of vegetables coming up. And of course, they were coming up from our food waste. And just so you know, compost piles are just for plants. So anything that's animal based, you will not put in your compost pile. But when you start putting plants in your food waste from plants in your compost pile, don't be surprised next season, next spring, when you start seeing all kinds of volunteers. I've had tomato volunteers, watermelon volunteers, squash, little baby pumpkin volunteers. It's pretty cool. So anyways, the soil is very nutrient rich in a compost pile. So what I decided to do after that was start growing some vegetables in it, because to have a good garden, you need three things. You need plenty of sunlight, 8 hours of sunlight, plenty of water, and you need good soil. And people spend a lot of money on buying amendments to their soil. And here, when you just add in your own food waste into a compost pile, you can begin to create a very nutrient dense medium for your garden. So what I have here are actually two compost piles, and I alternate one side or the other planting things in them. And I'm going to plant today a couple of fall crops. And what I've got is mesclun mix. Those are greens, really yummy. They kind of have a little spicy flavor to them. And rainbow chard, which is also a really yummy green. And so I'm just going to clear away all of the organic matter, move it to the right side, plant my garden on this side, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that was fast, right? The reason why I have a fence around our compost pile is because we have a lot of little varmints known as groundhogs, and they will totally eat up our plants. First year we were here, I grew so many lovely things to feed like 5 generations of groundhogs in our yard, but no more. This garden is for us. So I've cleared this side, moved all organic waste. This winter, and from now on until next spring, all of our food waste will go on this right side, while we've got a few vegetables growing on this side. And then next spring, I will clear all of the organic waste on the right side, move it to the left, and next spring I'll plant on the right side. So you see what I'm saying about how I alternate? So what I'm going to do is, I'm not sure, maybe this may be like 4 by 5 or so. You need space to be able to kind of walk in between the plants, but I've just become a real fan of taking seeds and kind of gently distributing them around, and it ends up that areas where seeds do not grow is where I end up walking. And sometimes I'll put a few pavers in those areas where the plants don't come up, and that'll be where I walk when I go to harvest vegetables. So I'm going to just lightly sprinkle some mixed greens and some rainbow chard. Yum, I'll be right back. Okay, so I have spread out these seeds, and the Swiss chard seeds are a little larger than the other ones. They might need to be just slightly underneath the dirt a bit more. So I'm just going to take this rake, and actually I'm just going to lightly rake over it. Okay, so kind of evenly and distributed the seeds and just move the soil around a little bit so maybe the seeds drop slightly down below. You don't want them to go far underneath the soil. It really depends on the size of the seed. And again, my mesclun greens were teeny tiny little seeds. I didn't really need to do that for the mesclun, but for the rainbow chard I definitely needed to, because they were kind of larger seeds. So I'm waiting for a big rain. I thought it was going to happen, but if it doesn't happen, I'll be watering tonight, and I'll water again in the morning for the next, I don't know, 8 or 10 days. Make sure I really water well every morning, and then I'll start seeing little seedlings. So here you go, your twofer. How you can help reduce waste, food waste, reduce methane emissions, reducing our impact on global warming, and creating healthy, cheap produce for you and your family.